Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's first Monday military show. That means we are chatting with Mike Guardia. Mike is an award-winning author. He's a military historian and U.S. Army veteran, named Author of the Year in 2021 by the Military Writers Society of America. So he's written a gazillion books, over 20, and his latest two are The Combat Diaries, True Stories from the Front Lines of World War II, and the new one is out now. Go get it. Go get it. It is such a good one. Coyote Recon, The Forgotten Wars of Colonel J.D. Vanderpool. Now, we're talking about the holidays today. We're going to talk about winter holidays, Christmas, what it's like to celebrate the holidays on the front lines or maybe on duty. We're going to talk about different wars. We've got to talk about NORAD tracking Santa. We've got a great time ahead of us. But I'm just going to say Coyote Recon and The Combat Diaries, good Christmas presents. Just go check it out. Go to MikeGuardia.com. Also find him on Amazon. Welcome back, Mike. How are you?
Ladies, I'm rocking, and it's always good to see you.
We're Jingle Bell rocking. We got snow in our background.
Jingle Bell rock.
But you really get snow where you up are in Minneapolis, right? So do you always have a white Christmas?
Pretty much. For as long as I've been here, I don't think I remember a Christmas where there has not been at least a few inches of snow on the ground. So
Ooh,
all good.
Yeah. Did you get hit by that one snow thing going through? Well, that was Buffalo, so I don't know if you got it.
Yeah. Well, one day is pretty much like all the others. I mean, when it's snowing up here, so yeah.
Okay. Once it starts. And then do you start writing?
Okay.
Is that good writing weather to
Oh, it is. Yes, yeah.
Oh, so what are you working on now?
So let's see. Well, I actually got a few different projects in the hopper right now. So let's see. I think at any one time, I'm probably juggling at least two or three. And so what is in the hopper and what audiences can expect over the next year and a half is I am working on a story that focuses on Vietnam at the tactical level. And in particular, it is a company of combat engineers. And I think this is going to be a good story and in a way kind of a trailblazer, because I think all of the traditional histories about Vietnam that are told from the soldier perspective typically tends to focus on the combat infantry, tends to focus, on what we traditionally associate with combat arms. But I don't think that the world of combat engineering, all of the sappers and demolitions, I don't think that traditionally gets as much coverage as a lot of the other aspects of military operations do. So I think that's going to be one that will take readers in a new direction. And then aside from that combat engineering story, also working on, I can't remember if I said this in an earlier podcast or not, but it's looking at the war in Bosnia back in the 90s. And it's actually focusing on the small group of counterintelligence agents that the U.S. Army had sent into there. And it was a very unique story in the sense that you had all of these U.S. Army agents who were running these counter intel missions against the Bosnians, against the Serbs, the Croats, and how they were trying to come to grips with this new thing that was called peacekeeping. And this wasn't a war in the traditional sense that we are fighting a conventional enemy, but we're actually trying to become this amped up police force that's trying to reestablish the peace that was so suddenly lost. And I think in a broader sense, a lot of these veterans that I'm interviewing for this project, they bring a very unique perspective to the table, because they were all of the mindset that everything having to do with Yugoslavia, that was like the one point of light behind the Iron Curtain. And a lot of them were recalling in pretty exquisite detail the 1984 Winter Olympics that had gone on in Sarajevo. And they were saying, here we were 11 years later, and we were recalling all of those great images that we had seen on TV in the 80s of Sarajevo being this one place that you could truly call a melting pot, and now it's just all gone to hell in a handbasket. Just trying to make sense of, hey, wow, were all of these ethnic rivalries and ethnic tensions really that bad? And how do we try to get back to some semblance of peace?
That's
So
interesting.
those are at least two projects in the hopper right now.
It reminds me of Africa because there's so many factions and they have so many cultural differences that as an outsider, you're like, oh, get over it. Why is that such a deep-seated thing to you? Not you personally, but when you talk to the people one-on-one, and we've lived with different tribes, and we found out it's so deep-seated that it's actually hard to go there in your mind, that they would harbor these resentments and feuds and ideas century after century, pretty much. And so I feel like, if people could just sit down there, I don't know what the right word is, just set it down and try something new. Like just get over the past. You can't fix
just
it.
get
You're
over
not
it.
gonna,
I think that's
but you
a
can't
hard
fix
thing,
it. You can't change it. So how about try to gently move on, try something new, and not harbor, like, it's almost as if you inherit anger.
Right.
Well, I'm interested to hear what they said. I mean, going into peacekeeping mission, like how to create peace.
Yeah.
That's
I think
And
that's
you
awesome.
weren't entirely sure who the enemy was on any given day. It's like, okay, am I going to focus my attention on the Croats today? Is it the Serbs who are going to be making trouble? And now I have to deal with, now I don't only have to deal with a lot of these ethnic tensions, I have to deal with a lot of these religious tensions as well, because, I mean, goodness, it seems that one set of people are exclusively Christian, Orthodox Christian, no less, and then you have another group of people who are Muslim. And I'm like, okay, so we got Muslim Serbs, and we have all of these different social and cultural dynamics, and we're not getting half of the benefits that we would otherwise get if this was truly declared a combat mission. So we don't quite have the priority funding and the priority equipment that we would otherwise need to be able to do the job as effectively as we think we can. So,
wow, it's going to be a good read.
And I find it a little bit ironic and a little bit funny at the same time that they were straddled with this very critical mission right in the middle of those 90s era cuts that we were doing to the defense budget. It was like, okay, well, the Cold War's over, so we're going to slash the military basically in half. And, we're going to brag about how we're turning a budget deficit into a budget surplus. But at the same time, a lot of that surplus is coming from the drastic cuts in military spending. But at the same time we're doing that, we're amping up these operational deployments by a factor of about 400%. So it's like
who's thinking
crazy.
at that point?
That's really crazy.
It's kind of interesting now. I mean, some of the cities that just decided to defund the police force, like they're not doing so well, and they're like, oh, holy cow, oopsie.
Well,
and we know businesses that are having to
seen that
get
one coming.
Really.
I mean, obviously some bad policemen and women out there. Obviously, there's some bad. I mean, you're in Minneapolis. Let's not go there. But you know what I mean. There's some traumatic things that have happened that are not right. But to throw out an entire force of people that are trying to do so now, they're all trying to scramble and fix things. And I mean, we know people, businesses that they're all having to get together and hire security guards that and the security guards normally call into the police if there's an act. They're supposed to just kind of be the buffer zone and call it in and be the front line of like, don't be doing that. not being like, they can't arrest somebody other than a citizen's arrest, right? So it's kind
I
of a,
think they can detain, but they
they
can't
can
arrest.
detain, arrest, kind of move on, but they call the police. We've done interviews
Right.
on this. And so who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? You know, I'm all for that. If we get
I would
marshmallows.
love to have a proton pack.
Dude, wouldn't it be
Yeah,
cool to
really.
have
Yeah.
Ghostbusters in real life? Like seriously, it'd be fun. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, what you're talking about now, I think history repeats itself, right? And I know today we're talking about, the winter holidays on the front line, and I'm thinking about, God, what is it got to be like in Russia for those who are not supporting Putin and everything, right?
Right.
What's it like now in the holiday season? And Ukraine, I mean, they're battling energy so much.
Mhm.
What are the holidays like for them? I mean, it's almost like you just forget it. Or do you hold on to, especially a spiritual faith in this, you know? So I'm just, my heart is out to all those in Ukraine that are just fighting, and man, they're badasses, man. They really are. Like Ukraine,
Mhm.
are you watching that every day? Going, check this out. Look what they're doing.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been
that's
following it pretty closely, and
yeah.
yeah, it's no, it's still early in the fight, and I think
Don't say
that
that. We want it to be done
well,
now.
I mean, I mean, I want it to be done too, but yeah, there's no telling how long exactly this might go on, and I mean,
Mhm.
we look by the standards of warfare, and I think by the standards of warfare, if you're looking at it from an uh, Eastern European perspective, it has the potential to draw out longer than most of the commentators and the analysts might otherwise expect.
Mhm.
But one thing that I don't think anyone can deny is, just how incredibly resilient the Ukrainian armed forces and even the Ukrainian people have been, because these same talking heads in the days and weeks that were leading up to the invasion were saying things like, it's probably going to be a cakewalk for the Russians. If you look at the sheer comparative
Mhm.
size, it's
Mhm.
probably not going to last very long. Then you have that added factor in there of, they're both using equipment that's been made by the same manufacturer, generally of the same vintage. You're probably going to have a lot of incidents of fratricide. And yeah, here we are 8 months
Mhm.
later, 8 or 9 months later,
God,
even,
yeah.
and yeah, it has lasted longer than I think most people had expected by this point. But to see the gains that the Ukrainians have made, and
They're awesome.
to see just how deep the machine has been running for the propaganda on both sides, it really just it really just gives you a moment to take pause and say, wow, this is
Mhm.
one for the books, if for no other reason than you had an underdog who was given every last thing he could to try to win the fight, and has been making some very, very impressive gains all across the board.
Mm.
When people are fighting for their freedom, I think that it's all on the line. There's no
It's
holding
noble.
back. And then you have the other side, and from what I've read of the Russian soldiers, half of them didn't want to go there anyway.
Right.
Some of them are deserting. In fact, a lot of them are deserting. So their heart's not in it, because some of them are actually related to
Right?
the Ukrainians. So it's a big mess. And so it's really it's so political. It's just so
Wrong.
wrong on every side. From, like, I mean,
Isn't Russia breaking laws on this in a
eventually,
way?
even if Ukraine doesn't gain their freedom this time, they will not stop trying. They won't. They're going to do it again and again and again until they're successful. And it might take a lot of time, or it might be in a few months. You don't know, but eventually Russia will fail, because they're on the bad side, the wrong side. Even the Russian people don't like their leader. Uh-oh. But I mean, some of them might, but
Mm.
not so many. They
We'll
don't, they
see.
want their freedom too.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't, yeah, it is. There's someone, it's like, it feels like World War II happening all over again, and yeah, let's go
Hmm.
there. You've got
Okay.
World War II, you've
Right.
got your two children's books. So this is
Uh-huh.
something everyone, it's snowing in Hawaii. Come on, go get that. That's it.
Yeah.
And World War II, Night Before Christmas.
Mm.
Tell us a little bit about that book again. I know we've talked about it over the years, but it's always such a good, reminder of, it's a good way to teach kids about war, right? And just, sacrifices.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not quite sure when or how I got the idea, but for a long time, I have been a tremendous fan of the original poem, The Night Before Christmas,
Mm.
and was always something that I enjoyed, whether I had read it in a book, whether it had been read aloud to me, or whether or not I had seen some kind of TV rendition of it. I
Mhm.
just always thought that it was very cheery and something that really embodied the entire spirit of Christmas. And I want to say, I was around maybe 6 or 7. I think the first time that I saw I think that was the first time that I saw a satirical rendition of the poem. And
Mm.
yeah, and then I caught on to the fact that there were several of all of these different renditions that were made to parody the original. And a lot of them had taken on a variety of themes, like for instance, there was one that was called Texas Night Before Christmas, where, Santa, instead of having a sled and his 8 tiny reindeer, he has a covered wagon. It's being pulled by all these
That's
longhorns.
funny.
And then let's see, there was a
With
Louisiana
javelinas on
Cajun.
the side.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And then there was the Cajun Night Before Christmas, where he's actually
Mhm.
being pulled by a team of Louisiana alligators.
I love
And
it.
That's funny.
yeah, and he is doing Christmas on the Bayou. And there were
Cool.
so many of all of these parodies out there. I said, well, you know what? I really think that there should be one that has to do with World War II. But then I started thinking to myself, okay, well, do I have enough creative horsepower to get a poem on paper that,
Mm.
that is true to the original format without sounding too far-fetched? And, I did pretty much the same thought process that I did with It's Snowing in Hawaii. And I just got out the legal pad and, I started scribbling down some notes. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to put Santa Claus sometime in World War II, then maybe it would be fitting for him to be in a place, that is indicative of a typical winter climate. So
Mm.
I could put him in Europe. I could put him in the European theater, and that's when it hit me. Hey, maybe I can put him right smack dab in the middle of the Battle of the Bulge, and I can put the whole concept of Santa Claus and Christmas and standing for the spirit of goodwill and being on the side of what's right. I can put that against the backdrop of us in our ideological struggle against the Nazis, and how
Mhm.
we were essentially fighting for freedom and fighting for all those things that we hold near and dear to ourselves. And I can say, okay, well, if I can put Santa in that and he can visit the troops on the front line, he can somehow be a reminder of all things that are good and all things that we will keep on fighting for, and that
Mm.
Santa will reward those who fight the good fight.
Mm.
And that was, gosh, I want to say it was probably a day or two later that I had that first draft complete. And, I knew that once I had the draft complete, I could always rely on Mel Stevens to take all of those images and put them with an artistic flair. And yeah, just like on everything else she's done, she has made it a solid artistic rendition of what Santa Claus would have looked like had he visited the troops on the
Mhm.
front lines in 1944.
It's cool. And
Cool.
the illustrations are awesome in both books.
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing, is the kids want to see that. And you're a dad, like if you're
Of
reading a
course.
bedtime story and you don't have pictures in the beginning, well, you want to have,
Yeah.
it
We
helps
bought
spark
pictures.
the imagination, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm sorry, I still like pictures in my books.
Well, yeah.
I'm not gonna, not gonna lie about that, but I think that's so cool that you did that because then it opens that dialogue about what World War One and Two was, right?
Huh?
So, how did your daughters react with your books? Do you still read
They
them?
really liked it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So they were really too young at that point to understand the whole concept behind World War II and the Nazis, but they did understand that these were soldiers who were fighting the bad guys, and that Santa Claus was taking time to reward those people who fight for the good causes. And yeah, they really liked it. And as they got a little bit older, that's when they started to get more switched on to the concept of who the Nazis were and why we were fighting World War II. And that really took on a much deeper dimension for them. And yeah,
Awesome.
it is still a book that they love.
It's a fine line,
Awesome.
because you don't want to scare kids.
Right.
You want to inform, but in a gentle way. So it's a tricky thing, and I think you did a really good job with
Yeah.
that, because it is tricky when you think about it. You don't want to, the night before Christmas, here comes the Nazis,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Blood and guts,
It must
yeah.
scare your kids to death. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you did a good job with that,
Yeah.
because it's not an easy thing to inform in a gentle way, but not scare.
Mhm.
Right.
So when we think about families over the holidays, like World War II, let's go to World War II. We're talking about that. So, you've got, the soldiers on the front lines and you've got the families back home. So that had to be different. I was reading something today. I think it was put out by the World War II Museum in New Orleans about how there was a Christmas tree shortage and, how, just how they had to just change how Christmas was. You know what I mean? But what happens on the front lines to the soldiers who have different, beliefs? I mean, do they even get to celebrate or think that way, or is it just full on war? Because as I've read over history, there's been a lot of actual battles on Christmas and Christmas Eve.
Right.
It's not like
Yeah.
everybody just stopped. Some did. There's stories of peace between people going, let's celebrate
Right.
tonight together.
Yeah.
And then some going, screw you, I'm going to get you just when you think you could celebrate. So
Right.
how is that happen in wars? I mean, I know each one's different, but is it just according to how the war is going and how you're just gonna ignore it or move on?
Well, I think there are a lot of different factors at work. I think one is that, if you are in the middle of a combat zone, that is typically what your mind is going to be gravitating towards. And, you really have to focus on the mission. But at the same time, you are going to be cognizant that it is the holiday season, and you are going to be cognizant that it is Christmas time. So you can celebrate for as much as the mission parameters will allow you to do. And there will probably be no strict guidance for exactly how you could or you couldn't celebrate. But it could be something as monumental as what happened on the front lines back in 1914 when they had the Christmas truce, and for one day out of that entire season, they took a break from fighting each other to actually come out in the trenches and celebrate Christmas celebrate Christmas together. Excuse me.
Wow.
It could also be something as it could also be something as small as, hey, we have a soldier in a foxhole, and he knows it's Christmas, so what he does is he gathers some branches to try to make a wreath, or maybe he has a little Christmas tree right there with him. Or if you want to take another example, there was a unit, actually there were quite a few units who did this in World War II. If we look at the Pacific War campaign, you'll have a Christmas Eve or a Christmas Day celebration happen on one of those sandspit islands, and you'll have a Marine Corps chaplain, you'll have a Navy chaplain who is giving a service to the soldiers, and trying to get a Christmas dinner going for as much as their rationed resources will allow. Or even if you want to take a more recent example, when I was interviewing a handful of veterans for Days of Fury and the Fires of Babylon, when they were deployed to Saudi Arabia in the holiday season of 1990. You had a number of them, actually secure a turkey dinner. We're right there on the front line, and I'll never forget another story that quite a few of the troopers confirmed that H.R. McMaster, when he was a young captain, when he was making the rounds to all of his troops on the front lines there on Christmas Day 1990, he had a little Christmas tree on the dashboard of his Humvee and was driving around with a Santa cap on. So,
Cool.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
What about
Of
if
course, it's
you
not
don't
regulation,
celebrate
but it's
Christmas?
the holiday season.
Like if you're Jewish and you're celebrating Hanukkah or different, because there's different winter celebrations
Right.
according to your religious belief.
Uh-huh.
What are you, I mean, what happens then? I mean, our friends that are Jewish, of Jewish faith, they go, heck, we're going to do Hanukkah, but we're still celebrating Christmas because you get a lot
Right.
more.
Yeah.
It's a lot more
Mhm.
fun.
Sure. I mean,
Just
why
more
not?
fun.
They all
It's
have
a
good
lot more
food.
fun.
A
Do
lot of good
both.
food, no matter what, right? But
Of course.
now we've got Kwanzaa, so does the military try to incorporate all these different religious
Oh,
beliefs?
sure. Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. If we wind the clocks back about 10 years to when I was still on active duty, they always made allowances for any soldier of any faith. If there was a particular holiday that they celebrated, whether it was Hanukkah, whether it was Kwanzaa, they always made somewhat of an effort to make sure that that soldier felt included. They would always be excused from duty if there was if there was some kind of a religious celebration that they wanted to celebrate. And I remember that even though Christmas really was the driving force, there were always allowances made for Hanukkah, and there were always you always had a few of the more culturally competent commanders, say, well, okay, hey, we're going to have a Christmas get together. But while we were all in the company room, while everyone was exchanging these Christmas gifts, if there were one or two Jewish soldiers in the company, they would get something like a menorah, or they would get some type of gift that was representative of whatever faith they practiced. So.
And then Adam Sandler came out and sings, "Put on your yarmulke, here comes
Right.
Hanukkah."
Yeah.
I still love that song. I'm sorry, it is hysterical. I love that.
Oh yeah.
But and then Thanksgiving, is that, I know we passed Thanksgiving, but still, isn't
Right.
that kind of still try to do something with that?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. Let's see. I remember all the years that I was in, there was always some type of Thanksgiving celebration. And what happened in a lot of the units that I served in was that you would have the unit leadership, typically anyone from the brigade commander all the way down to battalion and company commanders. They would actually get dressed up in the classiest uniforms that they had, which for us at the time were the dress blues. And they would go to the mess hall and they would actually serve turkey from behind the counter. The soldier would come up, they would put the plate down in front of them, and they would serve turkey. They would serve the turkey and all the fixings as you would go down the line. And it would be your battalion or your brigade commander that was there. They were wearing that full dress uniform, and they of course would have a little hairnet on too, and say, "Hey, here you go, soldier. Happy Thanksgiving."
With the hairnet on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
That's-
that's
course.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But that's really
Protocol.
cool because you don't see that as much. And then, I mean, I know that we, over the years on the shows, we've talked about what people do, the civilians and families trying to get
Right.
things over.
Mhm.
So does that happen too? You get like cookies and things like that?
Oh, of course.
Oh, well, that's
Mhm.
good because, you can't have Christmas without chocolate and cookies and,
Mhm.
all that good Christmas cake, fruit cake. Everybody needs a fruit cake,
And don't forget the knitted socks.
And don't forget Nancy's rum balls. Nancy makes the best rum balls, and everybody's
And the
smiling once
ugly
they bite
Christmas
into them.
sweaters.
That's
And
ugly,
the
ugly Christmas sweaters. Yeah,
To go
absolutely.
with the socks.
Yeah, well, it is. You've got to think about, you're serving and there are all these different beliefs, and they all fall on different days, but they're all kind of similar. I think they all involve light. And the winter holidays always involve lighting candles, twinkly lights are nice,
Mhm.
but then there's also the light of fire, which is, maybe
Right.
not, that's when it's at wartime,
Yeah.
so that's a hard thing. What
But
about
you,
going way back when, like, in Civil War and stuff, did they still try to do something, do you think, in those times?
sure.
Right. There was always an awareness of it. And I think in a broader sense, there was always a tiny celebration if they could, even if it was something as even if it was something as simple as maybe just a 10-minute prayer session or maybe
Mhm.
an abbreviated 25-minute Christmas mass. There
Mm.
was always some type of, if not a full-on celebration, then there would at least be some kind of a recognition that that would be going on.
Mm.
And yeah, it was something that I think was really ingrained in the culture. And at the same time, it also gave us as Americans a chance to take what the longstanding traditions had been for fighting on Christmas and really turn those on its head. Because one of the things that really stands out in my mind, if you take it as a point of reference, would be the Battle of Trenton. Because here we were, we at the time were the Continental Army, and we were fighting not only against the British, but the British had also hired German mercenaries. So we were fighting both the British and the Germans at the same time.
Wow.
It's kind of ironic
Mhm.
because you
Yeah.
fast forward 200 years later, it's a completely
Mhm.
different picture. But they were stationed at a garrison in Trenton, and the longstanding tradition among all these civilized armies in the Western world at that time was that you do not fight on Christmas at
Yeah.
all. Like, it's like once you hit the 24th of December, that's it. You start shutting down. You take
Mhm.
a break of at least a day to, help celebrate Christmas time, help
Mhm.
celebrate the birth of Jesus. And then after that's over, then you can start fighting again. Well, George Washington, being who he was, not a guy who was afraid to break tradition, and being a
Hmm.
guy who was not afraid to think outside the box, said, well, if everybody's going to be standing down on Christmas time, that's probably when they're going to be at their lowest state of readiness. So you know what? Let's go ahead and break tradition for the sake of wartime expediency. I'll ask for forgiveness from God later, and I
Mhm.
will try
Yeah.
to get the element of surprise to a point where both the British and the German mercenaries might not recover from it, and cross. He was crossing the Delaware River. As a matter of fact, that's where that iconic picture comes from.
Mhm.
George Washington standing in a boat going across the river
Yeah.
with these icebergs in there,
Right,
right?
right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once they make it to the other side of the river, that's when they open up with that surprise attack, and that entire enemy garrison there, they never knew what hit them, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was a yeah. So that
Bam.
was that's
Sneak
probably the
attack.
biggest data point that I can say. Okay, this is where, or this is like one of the key elements to where Americans really had adopted a new way of thinking and brought that forward
And
into all
strategy.
these populations.
No,
They
And
did.
now we have
it.
fireworks.
No, we call it
Right.
sneak attack. It's
Sneak
called
attack,
sneak
yes.
attack.
Yeah, really, sneak attack. And it's interesting him doing that, because it is like, sneak attack, go get you. But also, I wonder about like fireworks. I know, Asia, that fireworks are always a big deal, but I don't know. I mean, even living in Mexico, fireworks are huge. That was a big,
That's a big
know,
deal down
but I
there
always think
too.
it kind of goes from, wartime, there
Mhm.
cannons going off and all of that
Mhm.
kind of thing, that um it's a little different. It's not necessarily cheery, but a
It's
little
a
bit different.
celebration of fighting for your rights and your freedom. So when you look at the words of the Star Spangled Banner, bombs bursting in air, that's fireworks. It's a
Mm-hmm.
simulation of that. To
Right.
say we fought for our freedom and we're going to keep doing it no matter how many times we have to do it.
Mm. And also, we've got Boxing Day in England. So that's
Right.
when everybody sits there, and this is, another war. You bought me the wrong gift, and they throw their boxes around and, box each other with their gift boxes. Just saying. I know that's not what it is.
What?
I, Boxing Day, come on. It's like we don't have Boxing Day here. We
No,
always had that
because
extra day. The 26th was Boxing Day.
that was the Boxer Revolution or something.
I don't know what the
In
Boxing, I
British,
have to go back and
it's
remember.
It's British history, the Boxer
We'll have to
Revolution.
ask Glenn. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. Do you know what Boxing Day is about, Mike?
I know they celebrate it in Canada too.
Oh yeah, it's a British.
it?
Yeah, it's a British thing.
Ah.
Yeah, I think it's they put all their gift boxes in the trash.
Yeah, but that's not really what it
Jack
comes
Dempsey
from.
started it. I don't know, but
No.
Sure,
it's
we'll go with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jack
Now
Dempsey
that
is
would
like
be the
"Hey,
cool
look,"
definition of it. I mean, that would
that
be the
would
cool
be
backstory.
cool. Jack Dempsey is cool, or was cool,
That's not what
but
it is.
so then okay, NORAD. Let's talk about NORAD.
Sure.
This is so cool because it was
Mm.
it was a kid calling in the wrong number, right? And then all of a sudden, like the military said, okay, because they explain who NORAD is, because this is like our
Okay.
watchdog, right?
Right. So NORAD is an acronym for North American Air Defense.
Mhm.
And those are your eyes in the sky. They are the ones who are responsible for defending our airspace, and not only to guard against enemy aircraft, but also to guard against any incoming missiles that may pose a threat to us. And yeah, they have radar stations that can see farther than God knows what. And yeah, they have a 24-hour
see
monitoring
Santa.
presence, and they also have real-time access to a lot of our strategic weapons, so that
Wow.
in case of a nuclear attack, it can either be countered, or we can send return fire to whatever return address is shooting at us in the first place. So yeah, just imagine. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say this, and I know I'm going to date myself when I do, but there are probably a good number of viewers and listeners out there who are familiar with an old movie called War Games, with Matthew Broderick.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
So
I know
I missed a
Matthew
movie?
Broderick, but I don't think I've seen one yet.
And it just got more awkward. Okay.
No, well, no.
Wait, hey, listen, no,
We'll
wait,
have to
wait.
look it up and see it and
No,
watch it.
we've
Okay.
probably seen
Well,
it. I mean,
Well, yeah. So 83, and this was before Broderick became an international superstar with Ferris Bueller. But so he plays this teenage hacker, and
Oh.
he ends up playing this game, right? That's on like this early online server or whatever it is, and he's actually routing it through all of the computer networks at NORAD, and they thinking that this game is real. Yeah, they end up thinking the game is real, and that like the Russians are going to be launching nukes and stuff. So yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty.
Oh, we
Yeah,
need
it
to
was
watch
pretty
that.
intense.
I
Yeah,
remember
we need
something
to-
a little bit, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we need to watch it on Christmas.
now I have to watch
Fun. Yeah.
Ferris Bueller all over again. I have to. Okay, got me on that
So
mode. Okay.
yeah, but
NORAD.
yeah, so they are the guys who are, in the broadest sense, really just responsible for defending American
Mhm.
airspace. Yeah.
So they
Okay.
can see Santa and the reindeers coming in.
Yes,
Well,
they
yeah,
can.
because the little girl called them.
Mhm.
There was like a misprint and an ad, a Christmas ad or
Mhm.
something, or she was trying to call. Was she trying to call Santa or something? And she got the wrong number, and then the guy on the other end of the line realized it and decided to tell her they're tracking Santa. Am I getting this straight? Like a little,
I think that sounds right. Yeah.
yeah, like a little girl called, and
So I'm a
then
little
next thing you
fuzzy on the
know,
history of how it started, but yeah,
yeah, it
I've
was a little girl calling in
right.
I know it's in the 1950s.
She's all like, I want my teddy bear.
Yeah, I remember and doing that when you first learned how to use a phone, and then I learned how to do international calls,
Oh,
and boy, did I
don't-
get in
don't.
trouble.
And on a
Oh,
rotary phone too.
Yes,
No,
yes. Remember when we
no,
had operators years
no,
ago?
you
I don't
did it
know.
from a
Talk about
hotel.
dating myself back. Mm.
No, Lisa made phone calls from a hotel, and then I got this
No,
bill.
that was your one employee. That was not
Hey,
me. It
both
was
of
her.
you.
I sat there and said, Nancy's gonna kick your butt, and she still
Mhm.
did it. And then, but because I did it as a
Oh
kid,
my
I called my
gosh, I
grandma
couldn't
in
believe it.
America from South
See?
Africa. And
Which is okay with permission, heads up. But
dude, this was in like what? Like all right.
It
Anyway, let's not
costs
date
so
myself
much
way
money.
back when, but I did have to
Okay.
use yeah. But it was
Mhm.
it was way back when. But NORAD, so the little kid calls in and whoever answered from NORAD realizes the little girl's trying to find Santa's got it wrong. So he pretended that they're watching Santa. This is who,
Mm.
and then it was one call after the other because it was printed in a
But it's cool.
newspaper or something like that. So then it just,
It's
and to this
cool.
day, I know it's like millions, it happens. They have a hotline, you can call
I
it.
know, but I
Mhm.
think it's really cool because it
It's fun.
decreases that separation that
Mhm.
shouldn't be there between people who are fighting for us and the people who are benefiting from the people who are fighting for us. They
See,
don't
see
even,
it,
you know.
it's like magic, and that there's a thing to that. I think, we've got
Mm.
this religious side of Jesus being born,
Mhm.
and then at the
Yeah.
same
Right.
time, the Christmas trees and all that adds this element of magic. And there's something magical about snow and the twinkly
Of
lights and
course.
all of that. So
Yeah.
NORAD, it just adds
Great.
that little belief of going
Santa.
beyond, right? And I think
Mhm.
that's something, also for those who are fighting, it brings that
Yeah.
extra bit of hope and positive. You know what I mean? Like if you're out there in the front lines, I mean, imagine being in Vietnam. Like they don't care if you're celebrating Christmas,
Right.
No,
I mean, if you're in a POW camp, they really don't care, do they? Like it's just
no.
you're just gonna have to
No.
celebrate Jesus on your own.
Right.
So that's
Mhm.
yeah, because they're not even you ain't getting anything, right? Because if
That's
you're in
why
tortured and
that's why you look to the stars and you see a falling star and you see shooting stars and you see constellations. That's why people look up to the sky.
mm,
When
Yeah.
things go down, they look up. They
mm.
go, oh, I
Mhm.
sound like Hillary Clinton. That wasn't.
No, no, that was the
Didn't mean
Obamas.
to do that, but I'm just saying, sometimes when things get bad, you have to look at nature to recover.
Mm. And twinkly lights. And now I want hot chocolate with marshmallows.
Well, of course.
What's your favorite, Mike, for holidays?
Oh, wow. I have to pick just one.
No?
No, you can have
Okay.
two.
It's Christmas
Okay.
season. You can have
Right.
as much as you want.
Okay. Well, let's see. Probably my favorite, pound for pound, would be the pumpkin pie. And I
Mm.
won't limit it to just the pumpkin pie. I'd say it's a three-way tie for first place because you can't just limit yourself to one flavor of pie on the holidays.
Mhm.
It has to be pumpkin pie. Then it has to be followed up with a pecan pie.
See,
And
Yes.
then, yes, and then apple. Now, cherry's good. I just don't really think it fits with the whole theme of the season. I would prefer the cherry being a cobbler than a pie,
You want
but
for spring?
okay, you could do that. You could
Yeah.
have a cobbler.
Okay. So
I would take
I vote
3
for the
slices
pecan
of
pie.
pecan pie instead of the apple and the cherry. I would have 3 slices of pecan pie.
it's pecan.
Wow, you go, girl.
I
And I
know.
found out that, yeah, and I actually found out once I lived outside of Texas that there are a lot of other folks in the country who pronounce it pecan.
Yeah,
No, you
pecan.
see, when we were in Texas, we had a bed and
Mhm.
breakfast lady
Oh,
talk
that's
about
so funny.
pecans. She's like, it's
Pecan,
pecan, like very,
pecan,
her accent was
pecan,
very
pecan.
pecan. And I said, it's not pecan, because I would, she goes, no, that means you're peeing in a can. You don't go around saying that. And I was like, okay, because you don't do
Yeah.
that. It was like this very
Oh,
la-di-da
boy.
accent. And I mean, she nailed it. Was even it was during her interview. She just like, you don't say that. And I'm like, okay, are you from England now? But yeah, no, it's a
Mm.
pecan. But they grow all over. New Mexico's really got a lot of pecans too.
Mhm.
That's a hub for that. And Georgia. And I'm allergic to them now. So my
Really?
life sucks. Because that's my favorite pie of all time is
It's
pecan pie.
this, there's an acid
Oh.
in the skin of,
Mm.
of nuts. There's a little
But
bit
once
of
in a while I'll
acid,
have it. I'm not bad. It's just you
Mm.
can't have a full
a
slice.
lot.
You can have a little bit. So
Mhm.
have you had a pecan praline, like a praline thing in Louisiana?
Of course. Yeah.
Yum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
All right. So everybody have happy pie over the holidays.
Mhm.
I don't care what you believe in.
Yeah.
You can eat it. You're
Mhm. Of
allowed to eat
course.
it, right?
It's a
And listen,
celebration. So,
And latkes. We can have that over Hanukkah. We celebrate
Mhm.
with that. We're not Jewish, but we'll eat those and celebrate. I really agree that we should all celebrate each other's holidays and celebrations. I think
well,
that's fun. And we
it's
get to
good to go
understand each other.
sample the food and learn about the culture and history of other people so that you're not scared of them, insecure with them, so that you can relax and go, oh, they're actually just like us. They just believe this and we believe that. And so what?
Mhm.
No
Enjoy it.
reason to fight.
Mhm.
Let them
Yep.
have their belief and let you have your belief, as long as we're not hurting anybody.
In theory, that all works.
Mhm.
In theory,
In
right,
theory.
Mike? If if Dad sees what she says works, then we wouldn't have to have a military, would we?
I mean,
I
yeah,
think I don't know. I think you always have to be ready. Like animals always are on the guard. It's not that they always have to be on guard, but the time they're not.
When
stuff
was the
happens.
first military formed? Like,
Oh,
who formed
gosh.
the military? Who said this is? I mean, you've got to think. Back in the day, tribal wise, we'd all have our
The best
skirmishes
one
and
I
everything.
think was
gosh,
But
I
Napoleon.
mean, yeah,
Who said, okay, you have to have a military uniform?
I think
These are
Napoleon.
I mean, yeah,
well,
that's
well,
Napoleon?
if we're talking about like the first beginnings of like the formalized militaries, I mean, we can trace that all the way back to the ancient Indians, the ancient Chinese, and even the Greeks. It was basically what today we would consider the Middle Kingdom.
Hmm.
That's where I think you really start to see the first rumblings of it. And you see all of those elements of people being trained according to a specific body of science to defend either a king or defend an area that has been assigned to a particular tribe.
Yeah, look at
So
Shaka Zulu. Dude,
mm.
right. Hmm.
dude, he was
I
bad.
still think he's one of the
Badass.
best.
He was a
He
badass.
Hmm.
was cool. He was cool. Well, happy holidays and Merry Christmas, Mike, to you and your
All right,
girls
and
and
Merry Christmas to
family.
you ladies as well.
Let's go get
Thank you.
pecan pie and cocoa and
I know,
marshmallows.
I really want pecan
Yeah.
It's
pie
ever
now.
since
That,
I can't say Ghostbusters without getting a instant craving for marshmallows. It's just like
right.
instant.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Dude. All right, everyone, keep up with Mike at MikeGuardia.com. He's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's the thing of the year, right, Mike? And
Mm-hmm.
next year we get to see you on the History Channel again, right? We've got to give
Yes,
people.
ma'am.
That's
Yeah.
Awesome.
right, and
That's so
you'll
As,
see
cool.
him on there. Yeah, very exciting. And of
Cool.
course, go get Coyote Recon: The Forgotten Wars of Colonel J.
Mhm.
D. Vanderpool. I'm also going to say The Combat Diaries.
Mhm.
Just really both books, all of them. How many books now? Now that actually 23?
26.
24. Mhm.
Okay.
Ah, all
Yeah.
right. We can go hang out
So
with
it's
Jack
even
Bauer
2
now.
dozen. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. 24, everybody. Go get it. MikeGuardia.com is on Amazon. Keep up with us at BigBlendRadio.com. We are here with Mike every first Monday. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody. Peace.
All righty.